My brother pulled up in a U-Haul truck with 3 of his friends. They climbed out, walking toward my front door like they owned the place. He knocked once, then let himself in with Grandma's old key. I was grading papers at the kitchen table when he dropped a folded document in front of me. Grandma left me in charge. Pack your stuff. It was a 30-day eviction notice with my name typed at the top. I'm Vanessa, 31, an elementary school teacher making $58,000 a year in Richmond, Virginia. I've lived in this house since college, the same house my grandmother raised me in. She died 3 weeks ago. My brother is 34, works in commercial real estate, and makes $180,000 a year. If you've ever had family treat you like a personal ATM while they built their empire, smash that subscribe button right now. You're going to want to see how this ends. Let me take you back to how this all started. I moved into Grandma's house when I was 22, fresh out of college, with a teaching degree. She was getting older and needed help around the house. I paid her $500 a month in rent. Not much, but it covered utilities and groceries. My brother had already moved out, chasing real estate deals in the city. He visited maybe once every few months, always in a hurry. Grandma would ask when he'd come back. He'd say soon, but soon never came. I was the one who drove her to doctor's appointments. I scheduled her medications, picked them up from the pharmacy every month, about $300 a month on average, sometimes more. I paid for those prescriptions for 2 full years. That's $7,200 total, not counting the co-pays for specialist visits. My brother would call on holidays and ask how she was doing. Grandma would light up and tell him everything was fine. She never mentioned that I was the one keeping her alive. When my brother decided to get his real estate license, he needed startup money. He called me and said he was $5,000 short for the courses and exams. Could I help him out? Just this once? I gave him $5,000. Then he needed office supplies, a laptop, business cards, another $3,000. Then he needed capital for his first property flip, $20,000 to close the deal. I scraped together everything I had and took out a personal loan, total $28,000. He promised he'd pay me back when the flip sold. The flip lost money. He never mentioned the loan again. A year later, his car got repossessed. He called me from a tow lot, voice tight with panic. I can't lose my car, sis. I need it for showings. I started paying his car note, $450 a month for 8 months. That's $3,600. When he finally got back on his feet, he traded the car in for a newer model. He never thanked me, never offered to reimburse me. Mom called it generous. Your brother's working so hard to build something. When Grandma went into the hospital for her final stay, the bills started piling up. Medicare covered most of it, but there were gaps, co-pays, specialist fees, equipment rentals. My brother was listed as co-responsible on her paperwork. His share came to $12,000. He said he was between deals and cash flow was tight. Could I cover it until he closed his next sale? I paid the $12,000. He closed the sale 2 months later and bought himself a new watch. He also asked to use my teacher discount when he enrolled in an MBA program. Textbooks were expensive, he said. I ordered them through my school portal and saved him $2,000. He graduated and got a promotion. He never mentioned the textbooks again. Grandma got sicker. I took family leave from teaching and stayed home to care for her full time. My brother visited twice during those final 6 months. Both times, he stayed less than an hour. Grandma asked about him constantly. "Where's your brother? Is he okay?" I'd tell her he was busy with work. She'd nod and say he was always such a hard worker. Our parents praised him constantly. Your brother's building a real empire. He's going to be so successful. They'd ask me about teaching, but their eyes would glaze over. Mom would pivot back to my brother. Did you hear? He closed another property. He's doing so well. When Grandma died, I was alone with her. My brother was at a conference in Atlanta. He flew back 2 days later for the funeral, cried at the service, and gave a long speech about how much she meant to him. People patted his shoulder and said he was such a good grandson. The will reading was a week after the funeral. Thomas Reed, Grandma's longtime attorney, read the document in his office. My brother, my parents, and I sat in stiff leather chairs. The will was short. Grandma left her house and its contents to her heirs. She named my brother as executor. Thomas explained that executor meant he'd handle the estate paperwork. My brother nodded, already pulling out his phone to text someone. 2 days later, he showed up at the house unannounced. He had a real estate agent with him, a woman in a sharp suit. She walked through the rooms, taking notes on a tablet. My brother followed, pointing out features: original hardwood, updated kitchen, new roof last year. The agent nodded and typed faster. I stood in the hallway, watching. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Assessing the property," he said. "We need to know what it's worth before we list it." "List it?" "Yeah, the house. Grandma left it to us, so we're selling. I'll handle everything." I asked what he meant by us. He said the will left the house to heirs, plural. He was executor, which meant he managed the sale. We'd split the proceeds. After expenses, the agent estimated the house at $420,000. After commissions and fees, we'd clear maybe $380,000. He'd take his half. I'd get mine. $190,000 each. I told him I wasn't selling. This was my home. He laughed and said it wasn't up to me. He was executor. Grandma put him in charge because he understood real estate. I could take my share and buy something smaller. The agent avoided my eyes and kept typing. That night, my brother called our parents. I heard him through the bedroom wall. "She's being difficult. Doesn't want to sell. I'm trying to do what's best for everyone." The next morning, my parents showed up. Mom hugged me and said she knew this was hard. Dad sat at the kitchen table, hands folded. "Your brother knows what he's doing. This house is too big for one person. You're young. You can start fresh." Mom added that Grandma would want us to be practical. She wouldn't want you two fighting over a house. 3 days later, my brother arrived with a U-Haul. That's when he handed me the eviction notice. He drafted it himself and printed it on legal-looking paper. To Vanessa Carter, from Estate of Margaret Carter, Executor Randall Carter. You're hereby notified to vacate the premises within 30 days. His friends stood behind him, arms crossed. One of them had moving blankets draped over his shoulder. My brother said we'd start packing today, get a head start. I could take my bedroom furniture and my personal items. Everything else stayed with the house. I sat at the table, reading the notice while my brother walked through the house, pointing at furniture. "This couch is original, probably worth something. Dining table, same." His friends nodded, taking mental inventory. Mom and Dad arrived an hour later. Mom's eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Dad looked tired. They stood in the doorway, watching my brother direct his friends. Mom whispered that I should cooperate, make this easy on everyone. My brother posted a photo on social media. That afternoon, a shot of the house from the curb, sunlight hitting the front porch. Caption: "Excited to bring this beautiful property to market. His girlfriend commented, "So proud of you, babe." Mom liked the post. I didn't argue, didn't yell, didn't cry. I stood up from the table and folded the eviction notice. My brother watched me, waiting for a reaction. I walked to my bedroom, unlocked my file cabinet, and pulled out a folder I'd kept in the bottom drawer for 5 years. Then I walked back to the living room, where my brother was measuring a bookshelf. I stood by the front door, folder in hand. My brother glanced at me. "You done packing already?" One of his friends laughed. I opened the folder and pulled out a single document. "You need to leave, all of you." My brother's smile faded. "What?" "I said you need to leave. This is my house. You're trespassing." He stepped closer, still holding the tape measure. "Are you serious right now? I'm the executor. You have 30 days. I held up the document so he could see the county seal. "This is a quit claim deed. Grandma transferred the property to me 5 years ago. I've owned this house since I was 26. His face went blank. "That's not possible. The will says the house goes to heirs, but the house wasn't Grandma's to leave. It was already mine." One of his friends shifted, uncomfortable. My brother grabbed the document from my hand and read it fast. His lips moved, but no sound came out. I stood still, arms at my sides. He looked up, face red. "You tricked her. This is fraud." The door opened. Thomas Reed stepped inside, briefcase in hand. I'd called him before my brother arrived. Thomas looked at my brother, then at his friends, with the moving blankets. "Do you have a deed to this property?" he asked. My brother held up the quitclaim. "She forged this." Thomas took the document and examined it. "This deed was recorded with the city 5 years ago. I handled the transfer myself. Vanessa paid her grandmother $10,000 over 2 years in installments. The property has been in her name since she was 26. My brother's voice cracked. "That's impossible. Grandma left me in charge?" "You're the executor of the estate," Thomas said. "That means you handle her remaining assets. This house is not one of those assets. It hasn't belonged to your grandmother for 5 years. My brother turned to my parents. "Did you know about this?" Mom shook her head, eyes wide. Dad looked at me like he was seeing a stranger. Thomas continued, "Vanessa doesn't live here as a tenant. She's the owner. She pays property taxes, holds title insurance. She refinanced 2 years ago. This eviction notice has no legal standing." My brother's hands shook. "She manipulated Grandma. Grandma was old, confused." Thomas opened his briefcase again and pulled out a medical file. "Your grandmother was evaluated by 2 doctors at the time of the transfer. Both confirmed she was mentally competent. She knew exactly what she was doing." He handed me a letter, yellowed with age. "Grandma wrote this when she signed the deed. I never opened it until this morning." I unfolded the letter and read it silently first, then read it aloud. "To whom it may concern, I am transferring my home to my granddaughter, Vanessa. She has lived with me for 4 years. She pays rent, helps with bills, drives me to appointments. My grandson is busy with his career. I'm proud of him, but he doesn't have time for an old woman. Vanessa stayed when others left. This house is hers now." My brother stood frozen. His friends exchanged glances, one of them heading toward the door. Thomas folded the letter and handed it back to me. "I suggest you and your friends leave," he said. "If you refuse, Vanessa can file a trespassing complaint." My brother's jaw tightened. "This isn't over." Thomas pulled out his phone. "Would you like me to call the police now, or will you leave voluntarily?" One of my brother's friends touched his shoulder. "Let's go, man." My brother shook him off, staring at me. "You're going to regret this," he said. Then he turned and walked toward the door. His friends followed, moving blankets still in hand. The U-Haul engine started outside. My parents stood in the hallway, Mom's hand over her mouth, Dad's face hard and unreadable. Thomas turned to them. "Do you have any questions about the deed?" Dad shook his head slowly. Mom started to speak, then stopped. The U-Haul pulled away from the curb. My brother's face was visible through the window, pale and tight. Thomas closed his briefcase. "I'll send a formal cease and desist tonight. If he tries this again, we'll pursue harassment charges." I nodded, still holding Grandma's letter. Mom finally found her voice. "Vanessa, how could you? He's your brother." I looked at her, my voice flat. "He tried to evict me from my own house." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Dad took her arm and guided her toward the door. "We'll talk about this later." They left without another word. Thomas stayed a few minutes longer, going over next steps. I should file a formal complaint if my brother contacted me again, keep records of everything. He'd handle any legal challenges. When Thomas left, the house was silent. I sat at the kitchen table, Grandma's letter in front of me. Her handwriting was shaky, but clear. Vanessa stayed when others left. I refolded the letter and put it back in the file. The deed sat on top, county seal still visible. 5 years I'd owned this house. My brother had been too busy to notice. Thomas called me the next morning. "We need to document everything. Bring any records you have to my office this afternoon." I arrived at 2 p.m. with a cardboard box. Inside were 5 years of property documents, tax statements, all addressed to me, home warranty contracts in my name, refinancing paperwork from 2 years ago showing the mortgage in my name, insurance policies, utility bills, repair receipts. Thomas spread them across his conference table. "This is comprehensive," he said. "Every document proves continuous ownership." He added his own files, the original quitclaim deed, recorded with the city, the title insurance policy issued the day of transfer, canceled checks showing my $10,000 payment to Grandma. I'd paid in $500 installments over 20 months. Each check had a memo line. House payment. Thomas also had something I'd never seen, photos, before and after shots of the house. The kitchen I'd renovated 3 years ago, receipts showing I'd spent $8,000 on new cabinets and countertops. The bathroom I'd updated last year, $4,500 for tile and fixtures. Exterior paint job, $3,200. Thomas photographed every document and created a digital file. "If your brother escalates, we're ready," he said. 2 days later, my brother called. His voice was tight and controlled. "We need to meet, just the two of us. Work this out." I told him there was nothing to work out. The house was mine. He'd seen the deed. He said Thomas was lying, that I'd manipulated Grandma. He'd talked to a lawyer. There were grounds to challenge the transfer, undue influence, elderly exploitation. I asked if he was threatening to sue me. He paused. "I'm trying to be reasonable. Give me half the value, $210,000. We both walk away clean." I hung up. Thomas had warned me this might happen. 3 days later, a process server arrived at my door with the lawsuit papers. Randall Carter versus Vanessa Carter. Claim: undue influence over elderly grandmother. Request: deed transfer declared void. Property returned to estate. I called Thomas immediately. He'd been expecting this. "Don't worry," he said. "This lawsuit is weak. We'll crush it." The first hearing was in circuit court. Preliminary motions. My brother's attorney argued that Grandma had been in declining health, that I'd taken advantage of her dependency, that the transfer happened without proper legal counsel. Thomas stood, voice calm. Your Honor, the transfer was executed with full legal counsel. I represented Mrs. Carter personally. 2 physicians evaluated her mental competency. Both certified she understood the transaction completely. He submitted the medical evaluations. Both doctors had tested Grandma's cognitive function, memory intact, decision-making capacity unimpaired, no signs of dementia or confusion. Thomas continued, the plaintiff visited his grandmother 4 times in the 5 years preceding her death. The defendant lived with her and provided daily care, won the 125 days of documented assistance. My brother's lawyer objected. Proximity doesn't prove legitimacy. The judge reviewed the medical files. Motion to dismiss is denied. Will proceed to discovery. Discovery was brutal. My brother's attorney requested everything: financial records, medical files, correspondence. Thomas provided it all. Every document reinforced my position. Meanwhile, Thomas subpoenaed my brother's records, phone logs, showing he'd called Grandma 47 times in 5 years, average call length 6 minutes, credit card statements, proving he'd been in Richmond only 4 times during that period, hotel receipts, showing he'd stayed in hotels, not with Grandma. Thomas also deposed my parents. Mom testified that Grandma had mentioned the transfer once. She'd said, Vanessa earned it. Mom had assumed Grandma meant emotionally, not literally. Dad testified he'd known Grandma was aging and needed more help, that my brother was busy building his career. Thomas asked, Did you ever offer to help care for your mother? Dad's voice was quiet. No. My brother's deposition was scheduled for a Thursday morning. Thomas spent 3 hours questioning him. The transcript arrived a week later. Thomas had asked about the $28,000 I'd loaned him. My brother called it a gift. Thomas showed him text messages where my brother promised repayment. Thomas asked about the car payments. My brother said I'd volunteered to help. Thomas showed canceled checks with my handwritten notes, temporary assistance. Thomas asked about Grandma's hospital bills. My brother said he'd been planning to reimburse me. Thomas asked, when? My brother had no answer. Thomas asked how many times he'd visited Grandma in her final year. My brother said maybe 12 times. Thomas showed hotel receipts, twice. On the video recording, my brother's face went red. The case went to summary judgment. Thomas argued there was no genuine dispute of material fact. The transfer was legitimate. My brother's claims were unfounded. The judge reviewed everything: depositions, medical records, financial documentation. 2 weeks later, the ruling came. Summary judgment for the defendant. The deed transfer was valid. My brother's claims of undue influence were unsupported by evidence. The judge went further. The plaintiff's lawsuit appears to have been filed in bad faith. Defendant is awarded attorney's fees. Thomas's bill came to $15,000. The judge ordered my brother to pay every cent. I didn't hear from my brother for a month. Then Mom called, her voice cold and formal. You've ruined your brother's life. He had to take out a loan to pay your legal fees. His partners are questioning his judgment. This lawsuit is public record. I asked if she wanted to talk about the house, about the 5 years I'd owned it, about the care I'd given Grandma while they all stayed away. She said I'd manipulated an old woman, that I'd stolen my brother's inheritance, that family was supposed to support each other. I reminded her about the $28,000, the car payments, the hospital bills, the prescriptions. She said that was different. He needed help. You were capable. I told her I was done with this conversation. She said I'd regret cutting them out, that I'd end up alone. I hung up and changed my number that afternoon. Dad tried to reach me through email. Subject line, "Can we talk?" The message was short. "Your mother is devastated. Your brother is struggling. Maybe there's a way to fix this? Family mediation? Perhaps." I replied with one line. "The deed was signed 5 years ago. There's nothing to mediate." He responded, "We raised you better than this." I blocked his email address. Extended family took sides. 3 cousins stopped responding to my texts. 2 aunts unfriended me on social media. 1 uncle called and said I should be ashamed that I destroyed the family over money. I told him the family destroyed itself. He hung up. A few relatives stayed neutral. 1 cousin texted, "I heard what happened. I'm not picking sides, but I understand why you did it." I appreciated the message but didn't respond. My brother's professional life took a hit. The lawsuit was public record, searchable online. His real estate partners Googled his name and found the case, Randall Carter versus Vanessa Carter. Undue influence, claim dismissed. Ordered to pay defendant's attorney's fees. 1 partner called Thomas, asking for details. Thomas confirmed the facts. The partner withdrew from a joint venture with my brother. A $200,000 deal gone. Another client found the court documents and questioned my brother's judgment. If he'd sue his own sister over a house she legally owned, what would he do to them? They terminated their contract. My brother's girlfriend posted a vague status. Sometimes people aren't who you think they are. She changed her relationship status to single 2 weeks later. I heard through the neutral cousin that my brother had moved to a smaller apartment, that he was working longer hours trying to rebuild his reputation, that Mom had loaned him money to cover the legal fees, $15,000, the same amount I'd given him years ago. I felt nothing, no satisfaction, no guilt, just quiet. 6 months after the judgment, I refinanced the house again. Interest rates had dropped. New mortgage payment, $1,100 monthly. I used the savings to update the kitchen one more time. New appliances, better lighting, $5,000 total. I found Grandma's journals in the attic, 5 leather-bound books, dated entries. I read through them slowly over several weeks. 1 entry from 6 years ago. Vanessa helped me plant tomatoes today. She's so patient. Randall called to say he's busy with work. I told him. I understood. Another entry from 5 years ago. Signed the house. Over to Vanessa today. Thomas handled everything. She tried to refuse, said I should keep it. I told her she earned it. She's been my family when others forgot. I closed the journal and set it on the shelf. Grandma's handwriting shaky, but clear. Christmas arrived. A card came in the mail. My brother's handwriting on the envelope. No return address. I held it for a moment, then returned it unopened, writing "Return to Sender" across the front. Mom sent a text from a new number. "We're having Thanksgiving dinner. You're welcome to join us. It's time to move past this." I didn't respond. I spent Thanksgiving with 3 other teachers from my school. We cooked together, watched football, and graded papers. It was quiet and comfortable. I drove past my parents' house once in January and saw my brother's car in the driveway. I kept driving. The house is mine, every room, every corner. I repainted the bedroom last spring. Soft gray, new curtains. I replaced the front porch light with something brighter. The property tax bill comes twice a year, $3,800 annually. I pay it in full each time. The mortgage statement arrives monthly, principal balance dropping steadily. I'm building equity in something I already own. My brother tried one more contact attempt in March, a letter forwarded through Thomas's office. Thomas called to ask if I wanted it. I said no. Thomas shredded it. Mom sent another email, this time to my school address. Subject line: we need to talk about your grandmother's things. There are family heirlooms. I forwarded it to Thomas without reading past the subject line. He sent a formal response: all property contents transferred. With the deed, no further discussion warranted. I haven't heard from any of them since. The house is quiet now. Morning sun comes through the kitchen window. I make coffee and grade papers at the same table, the one my brother wanted to inventory and sell. I found Grandma's favorite chair in the attic last month and had it reupholstered, $200 for fabric and labor. It sits in the living room now. I read there in the evenings. The deed is framed on the wall in my office. County seal visible. Date: 5 years ago. Margaret Carter to Vanessa Carter. Consideration: $10,000. My brother was too busy to notice when it happened, too busy to visit, too busy to care for the grandmother who raised us. But he wasn't too busy to try to take what wasn't his. The house still stands on the same street. Neighbors know the story now. They nod when they see me. One brought over cookies after the lawsuit ended and said she was glad I'd stood up for myself. I sleep well. The mortgage is affordable. The rooms are mine, every inch paid for, every corner earned. The deed was signed 5 years ago. He was just too busy to notice.